Are you logical or are you emotional? Or maybe a little of both. Hi, and welcome back to the Bunkhouse. So my thought for today is, how do we process the information coming at us constantly? It's everywhere, more now than ever before. So there's a few ways to process information. The ways that I'm thinking of are logical, very methodically, and you can process the data in tight increments of the way that a great mind works, just so. Or you can be emotional and just kind of process it through how you feel. And a lot of people are this way. I don't know that either one is better than the next, but maybe you're the person that sifts through it in both fashions. And I think there's some wisdom in that. How do you think through all that data coming at you all day long, all the time, everywhere? You never really know who you're talking to, what's going on inside their head. So much so that you wonder if you really even know yourself. And why is that? Because there is just so much data out there, and we have to decide what we think about it. Everybody else is doing it, but there's so many factors to consider to even just come up with a singular opinion. The one thing I always come back to is a principle. There's very few things really that fit into this category for me, but it's my no matter what's, it's my absolutes. And I've defined those a long time ago, and I continue to refine them as I get older. And I think the benefit to doing something like that is that it helps me to process something quickly into just a way that I'm going to go about thinking about it, whether it is something to feel the emotion of or something to process with a little more logic. There's better times for each. So what are these principles? It's my ethics, my morals, my absolutes, and there's only a few of them. It defines what I will or will not do. Defining this takes some conscious effort. So how do we come up with these things and filter the world in which we live? First, and the most obvious, is that you're getting it from your parents, from your childhood. That's where a lot of these things begin to take shape. It's the way that you see the world initially. And that phase of childhood seems like a long time, but relative to a life, it's really not. Once you get closer to adulthood, you start to define what it is that makes sense to you and how you are going to see the world. And you can change the way, and often we do. As we grow up, we change the way we see the world based on these principles becoming set. But then you soon have your own world to figure out. As for me, I started out far more emotional with an understanding of logic. I appreciated it, but I didn't live there. And I had to decide. I'm the youngest of 5, and so everybody else above me in age, I got a chance to take a piece of, and I used a lot of their logic. And that made sense to me. I agreed with logic as a kid, but I didn't really do it too well, and I was far more emotional. But I did change that out of choice later. Into adulthood, I was able to push the emotion back a little bit and step into some more logical trains of thought. For me, that's a process, and one that I am still and always will be working out. But I like being emotional, and I think there's a lot of good in it. Even feeling the depths of sadness broadens the scope to me. My happy times are happier because I know the depths of sadness. I know the depths of the other side. Everything gets bigger, and the more I experience proper emotion and I'm able to filter it right, the bigger the overall experience of emotion gets. And the logic helps to control some of those. I know that the worst is not going to be here very long, and I know that you can get by the worst times. And I also know that the good times, while you love them, they don't last forever either. And so I'm always looking to kind of push it into the center a little bit more. But in those moments, I live it. I love being in the highs, and I kind of can get low too. If something doesn't feel right, you register it, you know it. And so you probably have those principles in place, whether they're conscious or not. That's what's giving you that signal. Maybe it just helped me to appreciate a little bit more. So I use emotion because people are emotional. And no matter what logic we use, people are the ones using it. But I love logic. Something for me has to pass the initial sniff test before I'm going to give it any credibility at all. That's a balance of the two, isn't it? Are you informed? Now, being informed implies that you're getting data, getting information, and deciphering it. Just saying you're informed doesn't mean you're right. It means you've looked into something and you've had a chance to think your own thoughts about it. Well, that's valuable. But you could have all the same facts as another person and the two of you would see it from completely opposite points of view with the exact same data. Why? Because of how you see the world. The challenge is to be challenged. Generally, we fit the data into the way we see things. Do you consider both sides of the information you're getting, even once in a while? Now, I consider myself happy. I'm very content in my world, but it's not without its challenges. Now, I always have to go through this process to think through feeling the emotion, deciphering the logic of it, and coming through with the principles and the higher-minded part of me that says, no, I'm not going to let this drag me down, or I'm not going to let this go beyond a certain stage of feeling it, whether it's too high or too low. Now, this is just the way I process it. Maybe it's exactly the same for some of you, and maybe it's widely different. We're all different people, and we have to process things our own way. But again, it's worth thinking through. Well, I like the balance of things, and that's the way I'm going for it. Maybe you see it differently, and you can comment below if you do. We're all different people, and I'm here to accept anybody else on their plane is logical, emotional, or balanced in between. We've all got our own ways to see it. And I think that finding out the way another person sees the world is good for discussions, it's good for friendships. And we don't have to be so connected to being right. Well, that's how I process that thought anyway. Hope this is something that gets you thinking too. Mostly, I wish peace for you. I'll see you next time.